Hello scholars, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Dr. Ayaz Muhammad Khan, and our topic of today's presentation would be grounded theory research. Dear students, for your convenience and because of the complexity of this topic, I have distributed this topic into three portions. As per the agenda, in our today's lecture, which is part 1, we'll be studying what do we mean by grounded theory, and rather what is theory as well. And then we'll discuss about the types of grounded theory research. Is it a method or a theory? And then challenges that are faced while conducting this theory. Then merits and demerits, and ultimately I'll show you some of the suggested readings that would increase your exposure towards grounded theory research. Our second part would comprise of data collection methods in grounded theory, a validity process of grounded theory, and we would discuss about theoretical sampling, note taking, and different things like that in grounded theory research. Whereas in the lecture part 3, we would be discussing data analysis in grounded theory, and this is the only research type which has given a comprehensive data analysis strategy. And because of this data analysis strategies, many IT specialist has developed software for analysis. Then we'll also study memo-writing, constant comparison method, which is very important in this research, and data saturation, and ultimately we would finish with some of the important studies that have been conducted in this field. So let's start. So dear students, just look at this beautiful picture. Observe it very carefully. What I intend from you is that you write down 10 sentences to explain this image, whatever you perceive. Okay, your time starts now. Okay, let's get over another practice. Just look at this beautiful picture. What you're supposed to do is give a suitable title to this image. Once you write your title, what you have to do is to give some reasons for your chosen title. So, students, question arises, what does grounded theory research do? So in a nutshell, we can answer that it develops theory grounded in the data. Grounded theory studies people's experiences with the process or phenomena, or looks at continuous pattern of behavior. And the most important thing, it merges data collection with data analysis. So most of the time, both things go side by side. So students, when you look at those pictorial images, what comes to your mind? One of the leading pioneers of grounded theory, whose view we call GLASERIAN view. So Glaser used to say that all is data in grounded theory. Dear students, before we get through grounded theory, let's see what do we mean by theory, though you have gone through it time and again. Theories are explanations of natural or social behaviors or events or phenomena. More formally, a scientific theory is a system of constructs, concepts, and constructs, uh, all those concepts which are not directly observable, we call them constructs, and they have to be operationally defined. And propositions, what do we mean by proposition? Where we go for relationship between those constructs that collectively present a logical, systematic, and coherent explanation of the phenomena of interest within some assumptions and bounded conditions. But one thing in social sciences you got to remember, that theories are never proofs, and theories should explain why things happen rather than just describing or predicting it. Here is a division of the concept of theory in another perspective. The very first one is ideographic, and the second one is nomothetic. When you explain a single situation or an event in idiosyncratic details, minutely keeping in view the differences, the theory is called as ideographic. And as the name shows, it goes through a single situation or event. So that is why it is not generalizable to a larger group. The phenomena is more inductive in nature. And the second one is nomothetic, explains a class of situations or events rather than a specific event or specific situation. That is what you do while making hypothetico-deductive reasoning in most of the quantitative research, where generalizability is demanded and you use mostly the deductive method. Here is a $1,000,000 question. Is grounded theory a method or theory? Does grounded theory offer methodology, theory, procedures, etc.? If you look at it as a method, it provides guidelines to identify categories, links, relationships. Key strategies are adopted: constant comparative analysis, theoretical sampling, theoretical coding, and memo writing. When you look it in this perspective, we call it as a method because it gives you a full-fledged procedure of conducting a research. But if you just look at it in another point of view, theory is generated by coding process. This theory provides the framework. This framework helps to understand the concept phenomena that is being studied. So what you do, that you do go for coding, but as a matter of fact, the purpose of coding is to provide a framework for the theory. And when you have got that framework, so it becomes easy for you to understand the concept. So in that particular framework, you are in a position to understand that phenomena. Dear students, the question arises why to go for grounded theory. Actually, Gloss and Strauss wrote a world famous book named Discovery of Grounded Theory in 1967. Dear student, it was revolutionary as till that time hypothetico-deductive reasoning was in vogue in the form of quantitative research, whereas grounded theory was totally based on inductive reasoning. Data analysis used to take place during data collection. Similarly, it was considered as best method among qualitative designs, data collection or data analysis, and a best method for exploring a domain without a dominant theory. You have no theory, but you are going to explore a theory. It was actually a combination of open mind with rigor and quality. When we need a broad theory or explanation of the process, we would certainly like to go for grounded theory. There were some more assumptions behind it. Grounded theory was helpful, especially when current theories about a phenomena were either inadequate or non-existent, as described by John Creswell. And when you wish to study some process such as how students develop as writers or many more problems like that, this sort of study was useful for a researcher like you. And whenever we want to think early about interpretations and theory, grounded theory methodology offers a disciplined way to do this and to turn our own tendencies to advantages in research. Another what question? We want to explore what grounded theory is good for. So it is good for exploration of a phenomena. As it uses inductive approach. It examines an experience, disciplined development of new ideas, finding theory and structure in domains where there is no priori guidance, keeping an open mind as you explore a new domain. An open mind is not an empty mind or empty head. Working with qualitative or quantitative data. The most important thing in it that though this is a qualitative technique, but you can also use quantitative data for the purpose of developing a good theory. Understanding an action, event, or process. So whenever you go for that, you wish to understand an action, an event, or a process, there is only one thing that you can do, and that is go for grounded theory. So many phenomena like bullying, disability, personality, experiences like homeliness and corporal punishment, many in education and business sector, you can go for this sort of research. What sort of ideas should grounded theorists have? So if you are going to conduct a grounded theory research, I would recommend you, in the words of CHARMAZ, that grounded theorists should have no preconceived ideas. You got to go into a phenomena without any presupposed assumption, a little bit closer to phenomenology as well. If you are getting into some phenomena, you got to bracket your background. What sort of presupposed assumption you have got, you got to write it down in the form of bracketing or apoky. No literature review before collecting and analyzing data, if possible, because this is what we call that you have preconceived ideas about those particular issues. Similarly, no application of existing theory because you are about to develop a new theory. Things to think while doing grounded theory analysis. You got to be pretty much open to a multiple interpretation. This is qualitative research, and people think as per their context, and different people with different contexts would think differently, and they would interpret things, same phenomena, differently. So be prepared for multiple interpretations. You got to be flexible as you look for answer. Don't keep in your mind that you would have 2 plus 2 4 sort of objective answer. Note that language is used to express ourselves, so there are multiple realities. Maybe same sentence but would be describing different perspective. But foregrounded theory is not good. As a matter of fact, if your mind is that you wish to explore things objectively and wish to generalize them, foregoing hypothesis testing, this is not the right domain to do it. And if you are evaluating a formal or published theory, then again this is not where you should go for. Similarly, confirming a hunch. So here goes some of the definitions of grounded theory. Just look at GLASERIAN in 2010, who was of the opinion that grounded theory is the study of a concept. It is not a descriptive study of a descriptive problem. Similarly, a grounded theory design is a systematic qualitative procedure used to generate a theory and explains at a broad conceptual level a process, an action, or an interaction about a substantive topic. John Creswell. But this definition goes very deep. Just look at it. What you have to do, you are going to explain various concepts and constructs regarding a particular phenomena at a broad conceptual level, and you wish to see what sort of process is this, what are the actions and interaction of that substantive topic are. Similarly, grounded theory is the most common, widely used and popular analytic technique in qualitative analysis. Analytic, and you would ultimately understand that it is inductive in nature when it is analytical. Students, this is very important, which I am going to tell, that there is a misconception, and Steve have described that misconception, that most grounded theorists believe they are theorizing about how the world is rather than how respondents see it. Actually, this is not what being researcher I am seeing or the world is saying. We got to see how the respondents in the research are seeing it. Strauss and Corbin in 1990 wrote another definition where they said a qualitative research method that uses a systematized set of procedure to develop and inductively derive grounded theory about a phenomena is actually called as grounded theory. So you would see that there is an evolution so far as definition is concerned. Initially, inductive method developing a theory. Then you saw that they started exploring procedures, actions, interactions, and that ultimately we have come to the era where we think that this is a systematized set of procedure, and the purpose is to develop a theory about a particular phenomena. Just give it a break, dear students. I would request you to switch over to your YouTubes and put that link over there so that you may listen what the honorable professor is saying about grounded theory. Just switch over to your YouTube so that after listening that you may come and we would start discussion again. If we start tracing the history of the grounded theory, we can see that it stemmed from the outstanding work of two great sociologists, Barney G. Glaser and Anselm L. Strauss. So we usually call it Glaser and Strauss. They developed grounded theory in 1960s in their world famous book, The Discovery of the Grounded Theory. They both were from the University of California, San Francisco Medical Center, where they publicized their method of research. The Discovery of the Grounded Theory, the book was important as it was the first book which was influential in key concepts. As I told you earlier that hypothetical deductive reasoning was in vogue there. Quantitative researches were going on very rapidly and swiftly. People posed a great trust on the results and objectivity of those quantitative research findings. But in the meanwhile, Strauss and his team, when wrote Discovery of Grounded Theory, they gave a detailed methodology, focuses on processes as processes. In upcoming years, many software was developed, I told you earlier in the previous presentations. Three versions of the grounded theory. Ever since the book written by Strauss and GLASERIAN on discovery of grounded theory, with the passage of time, Gloss gave his own version, and his version started in a book in 1992 where he based his grounded theory on theoretical sensitivity and on interpretivist paradigm. Radical focus was on data. In the meantime, Strauss, who has taken a new line with CORBIN, actually formulated the largest school in grounded theory, where members can be recognizable in the use of coding paradigm. They developed extensive coding schemes, balanced data and formal theory. Last but not the least, CHARMAZ constructivist version that emerged in 1990 actually was based on constructivist account, which stated meaning is not objectively pulled out of people, rather it is co-constructed. Okay, let's talk about GLASERIAN version of the grounded theory. He calls his grounded theory version as classical. He believes that anything could be considered as data. The word famous quotation, all is data. Radical focus on data, inductions and emergence. Emphasis is on variety of experience and methods. We don't need to transcribe all the data. Actually, as compared to Strauss, GLASERIAN version does not want us to go for all transcription of the data. He actually proposed 18 coding families instead of axial coding as given by Strauss. Do away with small steps. You are not supposed to get into everything which is not that much important. Just try to do constant comparison method and theoretical sensitivity. The GLASERIAN version stressed upon the need of theoretical sensitivities, importance of mentor, reduced requirement for verbatim quotations. Coding actions here were less formalized. Closures tend to occur earlier and dominates coding. No broad causative models were presented. When you will look at the comparison, most of these things would get clear to you. Dear students, just keep in your mind the details given in previous two slides where I discussed glacier version. So if you will keep those points in your mind, you would be in a good position to compare it with the STRAUSSIAN and CORBIN version which emerged in 1990. This is actually the largest. The previous one was classical. This one is the largest school in grounded theory where members could easily be recognizable due to extensive use of coding paradigm. They use lots of code. Simple coding, axial coding, selective coding, which actually was denied by, GLASER, who said that there should not be that much extensive coding. Here, the strong focus is on procedures and practices. GLASER would call it forcing theory. Taxonomies of coding actions, that is what we will do when we'll study the second or third part, where we would discuss in detail the coding paradigm. Closure tends to occur later and organizes subsequent coding. The closure tend to occur quite early in GLASERIAN version, but here quite late and organizes subsequent coding. Broad causative models, the paradigms are developed, but there they don't use to do it. Causal conditions, phenomena or events, context, intervening conditions, actions, interactions, strategies, developing concepts, and consequences. So these were the different steps that Strauss and Corbin version has. And keep it in your mind that this is actually the largest school of thought nowadays. Here are some of the guidelines given by Strauss and Corbin in 1990. They used to say, ask specific and consistent questions, then code them precisely and think about the process. Minimize your assumptions, which we call bracketing, and link these concepts. And the concept that you have got through coding, through the answers of the question you asked, you got to develop those concepts. Do all these keeping in mind condition, context, and consequences and strategies. In the background, while you are thinking on these processes and concept, you got to see what are the conditions, what is the context in which those certain things were said, and what would be the consequences. Integration of all categories in theories, grouping around a core category, and ultimately you built the storyline across this particular theory. Let's see what is the difference of CHARMAZ constructivist version from the Strauss and Glacier's version. Actually, CHARMAZ constructivist version emerged in 1990. Instead of studying one core category, CHARMAZ advocated for social constructivist perspective, emphasizing diverse local words, multiple realities, and the complexities of particular words, views, and actions. Dear students, you have already gone through my lecture of paradigm where I have very comprehensively told you about constructivist paradigm. How does individual construct reality and how this reality relates to the context of that person who is constructing that reality. So the constructivist paradigm was more important for CHARMAZ. She placed more emphasis on the views, values, beliefs, and feelings, assumptions, and ideologies of individuals than on the method of research. You know, previously more focus was on the method, process, but here the more emphasis was on the views, values, beliefs, and feelings, assumptions, and ideologies, and all those things in constructivist paradigm. The researcher acts as a co-researcher, so meanings are not pulled out of people, rather they are co-constructed in the interaction with them. The researcher, whenever used to go to conduct interviews, would not pull the meaning out of the people. Rather, they were constructed with the researcher plus the interviewee and the context. If you just look at this picture, most of the things would get clear if you have my previous slides in your mind. That grounded theory actually emerged at a time when positivism and pragmatism was in vogue. And what sort of shoots emerged out of this tree? The very first one was Glaser's objectivism, Strauss interpretivism, and Cathy Charmaz's constructivism. And then we see they started using different methodologies like interpretivist methodologies, social constructivism, and symbolic interactionism. But when we look at epistemology, they all were subjectivist. And if we say ontology, as they dwell into the phenomena without any presupposed assumptions, so they were relativist in nature. Just look at this chart if you want to start with a grounded theory. What method you are supposed to adopt? You just have to think about a phenomena to study. The second thing would be to go for exploring the participants, the good one who can tell you a lot, then developing a procedure, exploring data sources, data collection, data analysis, and writing procedures, causal conditions, then again to phenomena with the context, go to in-depth interviewing, then writing strategies, and ultimately going for consequences. Dear students, please listen carefully to this 11-minute YouTube video. This is actually the video of CHARMAZ, who is one of the leading expert in constructivist grounded theory methodology. Please listen to it carefully, and after that I would ask different questions to you. So here are certain advantages and disadvantages of grounded theory. You see, the major advantages are it provides for intuitive appeal, fosters creativity, it gives you potential to conceptualize, uses systematic approach to data analysis, and gives you a rich in-depth data and as well as data analysis. Whereas disadvantages are it is damn exhaustive. I mean, our students, especially of MPhil, would find it quite difficult. But PhD students who are good at writing description, they would find it quite, I mean, interesting. But it is very exhaustive. Potential for, I mean, some sort of methodological errors. Reviewing the literature without developing assumption. This is another important, I mean, disadvantage. Multiple approaches to GT. One is in a fix. Which approach he or she should adopt, and there is a limited generalizability. A very big challenge, rather some of the challenges. Critics of grounded theory are focused on its status as theory. They keep on asking questions regarding that grounded theory is really a theory development. On the notion of ground, why is it an idea of grounding one's findings important in qualitative inquiry? What are they grounded in? And on the claim to use and develop inductive approach. Thomas G. and James suggest that it is impossible to free oneself of preconception in the collection and analysis of the data in the way that Glaser and Strauss say is necessary. I mean, though you go for bracketing or epoche, though you go for writing the things that you are sensitized to, but besides that, writing your finding without any reflection of your own preconception is hard. So this is the biggest challenge in ground. So just look at this study. This is task 1. The study was published on 21st January 2020. Submit the review of this grounded theory research. I have given you the link. Just look at this link and write down a review of this grounded theory research. Keep it in your mind. 1 week is given to you. This is the assignment that will comprise of certain marks. So you got to do it by all cost. So students, here is a list of some of the suggested books that you got to get through. I would request you to get over the books of Kathy Charmaz, Constructing Grounded Theory, especially those MPhil and PhD students who are willing to take it for your thesis. I mean, you got to study those books very deeply. Similarly, we have another book, Grounded Theory for Qualitative Research. This is another important book, and you got to get over it. Similarly, some of the books like Situation Analysis, Constructivist Grounded Theory, which I have already mentioned to you. And if you are interested in Strauss and GLASERIAN Grounded Theory, their key books are available. Dear students, the more you get through those books, the more clarity you would get. Maybe, I mean, while describing grounded theory, I may miss something, but when you will get over those things, I'm pretty sure that you will understand the thing very well. Thank you very much for listening my lecture. I mean, see you again, inshallah.